Hi, my name is Tommy Bowen, and today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite producers, Tony Hoffer. I first learned of Tony Hoffer through The Kooks, one of my favorite UK bands. Now, anytime I listen to The Kooks, my first thought was, this sounds like something that could have been done in the 70s. Like, it had the clarity of modern music, but the warmth of those older records, like Led Zeppelin and AC/DC. Maybe not necessarily the attitude, but the warmth. Now, my favorite thing about Tony is that when he's producing an album, he's not just the guy who stands in the corner and gets everybody where they need to be, gets all the right people in the room. Tony is on the board. He's at all of the rehearsals with the band, already thinking about how he wants things mixed, and what they're going to need overdubs of, what they don't need. And I think that honestly brings a lot to the table, because you need someone who can say, we don't need this. This isn't essential to the song. Now, in addition to the Kooks, Tony's also worked with the Fratellis, which are one of my favorite bands. And though their run was kind of short-lived, they actually managed to put together an album called Costello Music in just about 30 days. That's 1 week of rehearsal, 3 weeks of recording, mixing, overdubs, everything. All within that month span, you got an album done. And I have to be honest, one of my favorite things about that album is that it does a lot of things that I don't generally like in music. He keeps the vocals pretty dry. I mean, maybe a little bit of subtle reverb just so there's some texture to it, but not really enough to give it an effect. I mean, I wouldn't call the way he uses reverb time-based effects. I would call it proper spatialization. And another thing he does that honestly goes against everything that I feel in music is hard panning. A lot of people refer to him as an LCR guy because, well, the drums will honestly be your traditional panning. It's guitars in the left ear or the right ear until a chorus or something that brings all the pieces together. But at times, it's perfect. I mean, it feels real. A lot of people say that when they listen to a Tony Hoffer mix or an album that he's produced, because as I said, I mean, it's almost the same thing with him. It's real. You feel like you know the guy who's playing guitar. You feel like you can see him because you can hear him. And I have to attribute a lot of his character, or at least the character of his mixes, to the fact that he uses a lot of older technology. Now, he prefers API and Neve consoles and their built-in preamps, but honestly, a lot of times, that's about the extent of his chain. He might have an 1176 compressor directly after the API pre, but in between his mic, which he loves to use Shure SM57, he cannot get enough of that mic. I mean, literally, he'll use it on the snare, he'll use it on the guitar. If it works, he'll use it on the vocals. I mean, he's really all about getting the sound that he has in his head, even if it goes against convention. And in addition to, obviously, the tried and tested U87, because he loves Neumann mics, he honestly goes for Shure next. I'm talking 57s, 58s. Another key element of Tony Hoffer's sound, which shows through in his work with the band Bell and Sebastian, is a tendency to reamp plug-in synthesizers with his favorite Ampeg reverb rocket to record a sense of space or air with the sound. To kind of give it that organic texture so that you know it was actually in a room somewhere, that there was a source of the sound, and that there's all of those little inconsistencies. It's not perfect. It's a big thing for Tony Hoffer, is he likes tightness to be an effect. He'll keep the drums a little bit loose, not exactly hitting right on the beat, if only to make a chorus or something stand out more when it really brings it all together. Now, more important than the technology or the techniques that he uses, I think what really says a lot about Tony is what the bands that he works with have to say about him. Luke Pritchard, vocalist for the Kooks, said that in their first album's recording sessions, it was Tony who brought them all together, who gave them a space in which they could comfortably work and bounce ideas off of each other. He said that before they walked in the studio with Tony, they had no idea what they wanted for their album. They didn't know who they wanted to sound like, they didn't know who they wanted to be, they didn't even know what all instrumentation that they wanted to include, but Tony helped them figure it all out. Bell and Sebastian even attribute the drastic change in their sound to the inclusion of Tony Hoffer as producer. In a lot of their earlier albums, the rhythm section is pretty low in the mix, kind of like older 50s and 60s records. But, I mean, that's just not how Tony Hoffer does things. And honestly, they like the way it sounds, so they kept going with it. In short, I think the best thing I can say about Tony Hoffer is that he gives a band everything they need to be who they want to be. Obviously, the label has their influence on any given mix, any given recording session for an album, but Tony Hoffer helps bands find who they are. And I think that's what makes him a great producer. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.